When international crises intensify, the United States typically responds by moving naval assets. Recently, headlines announced the deployment of the USS Tripoli to the Middle East, bringing 2,200 Marines into the theater. Mainstream reporting routinely condenses these deployments into a simple personnel tally. They frame the arrival of 2,200 troops as a basic infantry headcount, as if a fleet of passenger ships is simply dropping off riflemen. A Marine Expeditionary Unit, or MU, is a sovereign, self-contained operational ecosystem. It operates under a strict, interdependent structural framework known as the Marine Air-Ground Task Force. To understand what actually arrives when the USS Tripoli drops anchor, we have to deconstruct its modular architecture. We need to look at the exact mechanical and logistical components that allow this force to operate entirely independently for up to 15 days. Grasping this specific architecture is the only way to comprehend how the U.S. military projects massive, sustained combat power into hostile regions, entirely bypassing the need for vulnerable host nation bases. American naval strategy is dictated by a specific geographic constraint, the littorals. This is the complex, highly contested interface where the open ocean meets the physical landmass. Look at the raw data on this globe. 70% of the Earth is covered by water, and 95% of all commercial cargo travels across it. Most importantly, 75% of the global population lives inside this 200-mile coastal buffer zone. Zooming in, the vulnerability within these littorals becomes obvious. Nearly half of the world's oil supply is forced to transit through exactly 6 major maritime choke points. In a modern geopolitical crisis, relying on allied air bases or local commercial ports is a massive strategic liability. A sophisticated adversary will use anti-access and area denial weapons to instantly destroy or politically deny those fixed facilities. The doctrinal countermeasure to this problem is assured access, the ability to project heavy combat power directly from international waters, using the sea itself as the base. The physical vehicle the Navy uses to guarantee this access is the Amphibious Ready Group. Because global geography and modern defense systems make land bases vulnerable, the military requires a force that brings its own runway, its own hospital, and its own power grid. This requirement brings us to the USS Tripoli, hull classification LHA-7. This is an America-class amphibious assault ship, representing a specialized evolution within the fleet. Traditional amphibious transport docks and landing ships rely heavily on flooded well decks at their waterline to deploy heavy, slow-moving beach landing craft. The Tripoli takes a radically different approach. It is optimized strictly for aviation. It entirely eliminates the traditional well deck. That massive internal volume was repurposed to house an enlarged hangar deck and significantly expanded aviation maintenance facilities. This specific engineering trade-off provides the foundation for the Lightning carrier concept. The Tripoli has the capacity to embark up to 20 F-35B stealth strike fighters, utilizing their short takeoff and vertical landing capabilities. A standard amphibious deployment typically maxes out its fixed-wing footprint to make room for assault support helicopters like the MV-22 Osprey. The Tripoli can swap that standard loadout for a dense concentration of fifth-generation air power. Trading traditional beach landing craft for a fleet of fifth-generation strike fighters shifts the ARG from a localized tactical assault force into a theater-wide strategic deterrent. The ship's hardware is only the delivery mechanism. The actual combat power lies in those 2,200 personnel, who are strictly organized into the 4 modules of the Marine Air-Ground Task Force. This block represents the baseline force pool of a standard MEU, sitting at roughly 2,059 personnel based on current policy orders. The first module to separate is the command element. At roughly 169 personnel, it is the smallest fraction of the total force. This is the brain of the ecosystem. It provides the rapid planning architecture, handling everything from topographical reconnaissance to advanced signals intelligence collection. Next is the largest module, the ground combat element, pulling about 1,200 Marines and sailors from the pool. Built around a heavily reinforced battalion landing team, this is the core fighting force designed to move ashore and seize objectives. It brings heavy mechanized assets, light armored vehicles, artillery, and amphibious assault vehicles, giving the ground force severe kinetic punch and mobility. The third module is the aviation combat element. Coming in at roughly 417 personnel, this is the composite squadron of the MU. It provides the required vertical lift to physically transport the ground element, while simultaneously delivering offensive close air support to protect them from above. The final module holds the remaining 273 personnel, the logistics combat element. While it lacks the kinetic profile of the strike fighters or the infantry, the logistics element is the specific component that prevents the MEU from culminating after a single firefight. These 4 interlocking pieces function as a single, interdependent fighting system. Removing any one module causes the entire unit to collapse. The logistics combat element provides a very specific operational guarantee to the theater commander: 15 days of organic, sea-based sustainment. Without this element, the heavy armor of the ground force and the aircraft of the aviation squadron would run out of fuel, ammunition, and parts, becoming combat ineffective in a matter of days. To prevent this, the logistics module brings intermediate equipment maintenance, explosive ordnance disposal, and heavy earth-moving engineering directly to the front line. But the strictest limiting factor for any expeditionary force operating in a denied region is the production of basic utilities. This chart diagrams the exact mathematical output required to keep the force alive. The logistics engineers intake raw seawater, run it through purification sections, and produce 24,000 gallons of potable water every 10-hour day. They simultaneously deploy mobile power distribution systems and field generators, entirely negating the need to plug into local, potentially compromised electrical grids. Out in the field, this translates to heavy logistical tethers dragging massive armor through the dirt, ensuring the combat units never outrun their supply lines. The math of water, power, and maintenance physically guarantees assured access. The U.S. force cannot be starved out by a siege, and it cannot be held hostage by a failure of local infrastructure. The true lethality of the Marine Air Ground Task Force comes from taking these 4 distinct elements, training them together for months, and deploying them as a single cohesive unit from the sea. This ecosystem gives commanders a massive tactical advantage. The fleet can loiter in international waters indefinitely, maneuvering offshore to choose the exact time, place, and conditions to initiate a strike. A self-sustaining forcible entry capability sitting just over the horizon forces any adversary into a state of permanent operational uncertainty. The strategic geometry immediately shifts. A defending military cannot simply fortify a single port or airfield. They are forced to dilute their anti-access weapons, stretching their defenses paper-thin across thousands of miles of coastline. If the mechanized ground force does move ashore, they do so under the continuous, overlapping protection of the Tripoli's 5th-generation F-35s, screening the airspace above them. Re-examining the opening headline, the 2,200 Marines arriving on the USS Tripoli represent a scalable, sovereign slice of American infrastructure, far exceeding the capability of a standard infantry unit. The architecture of the Amphibious Ready Group solves the complex math of the littorals, effectively turning the world's oceans from a geographic barrier into an untouchable base of operations.